Law for me is an instrument for change, a tool that can be used either with blunt force or a tool that can be used as a shield.
Law for me is being in service of others.
Studying law is an amazing tool, but it also comes with a lot of responsibilities.
During my first year of law school, I had the opportunity to hear Justice Ginsburg speak. She said something that I still haven't forgotten. To be a true professional, you need to apply your skill set to make things a little bit better for everyone else.
I believe when you get, you gotta give. That's what I was taught. We've all learned from each other in so many different ways. And one of the things that I respect about each one of my classmates is everyone's very passionate about something about the law.
We are so privileged to get the education that we do.
We need to take that power extremely seriously and act with it with extreme caution, but also with great integrity.
My time in law school has really highlighted the importance of thinking about the law differently, not accepting it the way that it is. And that change really came about because of the community here at the law school.
Over the past 3 years at Columbia Law School, I've met some of the most brilliant, kind, welcoming, accomplished people I've ever met.
The best investment that I could make is having been a part of this class.
I'm really excited for what this particular class will do. I think the last 3 years has really informed us in a way that no other class has been informed.
Whether or not we wanted to, we had to show an incredible amount of resilience.
Law for me is service, plain and simple.
For me, law has always been a quest towards excellence. I don't think I'm there yet. I'm far from it. But how can I be more excellent than I was the day before?
I hope that the class of 2021 changes what lawyering means. I really do.
They will make amazing attorneys.
I can't wait to see the first one of us run for office, form their own organization, pass that first piece of legislation.
I think my message for my classmates is don't stop. When we enter the legal profession, I hope we'll remember our experience at Columbia Law School, the good, the bad, and everything between, and apply those lessons in our legal practices.
You are a class of risk takers, you are a class of perseverant students, and I really love you all. Thank you.
Welcome to our distinguished guests, faculty, family, friends, and of course, the graduating class of 2021. Coming to you from the rectilinear boundaries of Broadway and Amsterdam Avenue, as the famous writer Herman Wouk once described our beautiful campus. My name is Lune Kloppe and I'm from the Netherlands. As the LLM co-chair of your graduation committee, it is my honor to welcome you to the Columbia Law School graduation ceremony for the class of 2021. What a year it's been. 1 year ago, I remember watching our predecessors graduate virtually, fervently wishing circumstances would allow us to celebrate in person this year. However, none of us could have foreseen the incalculable damage this pandemic has afflicted upon our world. For us, the graduating class, the pandemic was a presence in our final semester in law school. Sitting in class with 1 or even 2 masks on, coming up for a gasp of air on Revson Plaza, only to find out that is now a one-way route. Slowly forgetting what the bottom half of your classmate's face looks like, raising your blue hand in Zoom land, reminding professors to hit the record button, or even taking classes asynchronously from opposite time zones. Our class has conquered all of these challenges. Today is the day that we celebrate not only the drive and tenacity that brought us to Columbia and allowed us to thrive here. Today, we also honor the strength each of us had to continue pursuing our dreams despite setbacks and suboptimal circumstances. We deserve to take this as a joyful occasion that it is. Whether you're here in New York City or tuning in from the other hemisphere, reflect on all you've learned, not only from your professors and mentors, but also from your fellow students who are talented, passionate, and tenacious. Express gratitude for those who offered up their love and support along the way. Honor the opportunity to carry your Columbia Law School education into the world at a time when your skills are needed more than ever. Be proud of yourselves for having the courage to be part of something that only starts here. With that, it is my pleasure to introduce to you my graduation co-chair, Chizoba Yukairo. Thank you, Columbia Law, Class of 2021, and congratulations.
Thank you, Loon. My name is Chizoba Yukairo, and as this year's graduation co-chair, it is my great honor to introduce Dean Jillian Lester. Dean Lester is the 15th Dean of Columbia Law School, the Lucy G. Moses Professor of Law, and the second woman ever to serve as the law school's dean. Over the course of her tenure, Dean Lester has led many positive changes at the law school, such as the expansion of clinics and externships, a sharp increase of student financial aid, additional support for students interested in public service and judicial clerkships, and a steadfast commitment to faculty excellence and diversity. Dean Lester is a strong and compassionate leader and has been a graceful example of how to lead effectively, even in the midst of uncertainty. During my time at Columbia, Dean Lester made herself available to students and was always willing to talk through student concerns. It's been wonderful getting to know her and personally observing her commitment to all students in holistic and meaningful ways. Thank you, Dean Lester, for your unwavering support and leadership of the Columbia Law School community. It is now my pleasure to introduce our Dean, Jillian Lester.
Thank you, Chizoba. On behalf of the entire faculty and administration here at Columbia Law School, it is my great pleasure to welcome you. Graduates, parents and grandparents, siblings and spouses, friends and loved ones. Today we come together to celebrate the graduation of the class of 2021 and recognize their achievements. And here also, we recognize the hard work, encouragement, and unwavering support given by all those who join us alongside these newly minted graduates. This is your day too. As you can probably see, I'm broadcasting this address from the law school in Drapkin Lounge. And as I look out through the windows and onto Columbia's campus, I see that the cherry trees have blossomed, a change of the season, a mark of transition. I also think about graduations of years gone by. In those prior years, as I've sat down to compose my remarks to the graduating class, I've sometimes felt a little tug in my conscience, a tiny voice asking whether the rarefied environment of the law school with its classroom hypotheticals and verdant campus walkways had given adequate preparation to our graduates for the world beyond our walls, a much more chaotic and unpredictable place. For this class, there's no such question in my mind. You have arguably seen more chaos, convulsion, and unpredictability over the last 14 months than past graduates have seen in their first decade of practice. On the global scale, a pandemic that has killed more than 3 million people. A national reckoning with our country's painful, shameful legacy of racism that has seen tens of millions take to the streets. A fraud election capped by a violent insurrection at our Capitol. A staggering rise in catastrophic climate-related disasters, hurricanes, floods, wildfires. And in our daily lives, we've seen a rapid pace of change in adapting to the pandemic, in the use of technology, in how we work and study, in how we relate to one another to maintain relationships and form new ones, in how we show empathy and responsibility for our fellow citizens, questioning societal structures, patterns, and habits, and our own places within them. Yes, your time in law school has been one of the most dynamic periods in our history. You have been trained as lawyers in the twin registers of change and adaptation. What's more, in the years ahead, we are almost certain to see these changes reverberate in the law. Right now, as we celebrate your graduation, our society is poised on the cusp of a period of explosive reimagination and contestation. Voting rights, civil rights, financial regulation, competition policy, tax policy, information governance, the social safety net, even our basic constitutional order. Critical issues like these are shaped by institutions that are constructed by laws and stewarded, led, drafted by lawyers. At no moment in my life, at least, have we seen such an urgent call to retool our core civic, political, legal, and regulatory architecture. Given all that you've seen as law students, as well as the moment you've arrived at today, you have already taken your seat at the table. And as leaders of a generation that will shepherd us through this transformation, that's exactly where our society needs you to be. The experts, the doers, the ones who will be called upon to see this change through, they will be you. Sounds kind of daunting, doesn't it? So how will you take on this challenge? In the face of change or uncertainty, there's a common emotion that many of us feel, and it's fear. And fear can lead to an urge to retrench and seek solace in the familiar. My advice to you is to resist this impulse. I'm not saying that you need to seek change for change's sake. I'm saying that you need to resist the opposite. Resist beating a retreat that's born exclusively of fear. Because uncertainty, if you let it, can also act as the wellspring of creativity and liberation from old habits that have outlived their purpose. It can help you to take stock of your priorities. What's important to you? What did you come to law school to do? And how will you see that through, even if things look different than you'd expected? How have your priorities changed over time? And what does that mean for how you will contribute? You will need to see your part, choose it, and own it. And in the coming years, each of you will be confronted with situations outside of your control. Novel challenges that have no blueprint, no past successes or failures to guide your approach. And it's along these uncharted paths where you will be tested the most. When this happens, place your trust in the knowledge and judgment that you have acquired through your study of law, and also what you've learned about yourself and each other in the process. I have every confidence that you will rise to the challenge of change like no other graduating class before you. Why do I have this faith? Because you are here today. Because you have had the guts and the stamina to earn your degrees in the most extraordinary of times. And while a memory of upheaval will surely mark this period in the law school's history, the most important thing that anyone will remember in this story is you. Your achievements, your poise, your perseverance. Finally, as we mark this moment, remember that this is a time of personal change as well. You are transitioning from law student to lawyer, trading the classroom for the world beyond. You are transitioning to another home, perhaps away from New York, or leaving the proximity of friendships or family. It's important to be careful stewards of this change too. Stay anchored to the friends you have made and to those you love. Give generously to those who are important to you, and be open to asking for support when you need it. And just as you have during this improbable law school experience, form community wherever you go. The world you are entering after finishing law school is undeniably different from the one that existed when you began. And it is surely destined to change more in the coming years. But my faith in you, the faith of your loved ones who have supported you during your journey, and the faith of our entire community remains unshakable. Graduates, this is your time now, and you are prepared for the challenge. You've got this.
Thank you for your kind and heartfelt words, Dean Lester. Shortly, we will hear from two student speakers. These two graduates were each elected by a popular vote of their peers, and today will speak on behalf of our incredibly vibrant and accomplished graduating class. First, it is my honor to introduce the speaker for the JD class of 2021, Oluwatumise Asebiomo. Oluwatumise has been a bright light and a strong, decisive leader during her time at Columbia. She joined the Columbia community after completing her bachelor's at Princeton. We worked closely together during our 2L year to lead the Black Law Students Association, where she served as treasurer and supported Black students with her creativity, time, and resourcefulness. Oluwatumise spent much of her past year serving as editor-in-chief of the Columbia Law Review, a historical accomplishment that made our law school community immensely proud. As editor-in-chief, Oluwatumise led the review through the pandemic and coordinated a beautiful tribute edition of the journal to our late alumna, Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Since the beginning of her time here at CLS, Oluwatumise has demonstrated her commitment to scholarship and community. Following graduation, she will remain in New York and begin her legal career as an associate at Cravath, Swaine & Moore, while staying involved with communities around her. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming my dear friend and brilliant colleague, Oluwatumise.
Class of 2021, it is truly an honor to address you today as we graduate from Columbia Law School. For many of us, the ceremony is far from the pomp and circumstance we've dreamt of, but an opportunity nonetheless to formally close out our law school chapter. And while this moment has felt far off in the distance for some time, thinking back to when we attended orientation and uncovered the joy of legal methods, or when we first found our assigned seats in JG, we are now graduates. Please allow me to be one of the first and one of the many people to tell you, congratulations. And oh my, all that we've gone through these past 3 years. Our waking, our sleeping, our attempts to sleep, our attempts to resist sleep, and all the life that has happened in between. We came to Columbia Law School to learn about legal systems, domestic and foreign. We came to law school to examine and contend with the law, what it was, where it is now, and what it should be. And knowingly or not, we came to law school to learn about ourselves and our place in the world, our place as change makers, and of course, our place as brilliant legal minds. What we walk away from this experience with today is not one bit what I thought legal education would be. Yet, it has been remarkable in so many ways. Some of the best advice I received beforehand was to be open to the experience, and from that openness, let the experience inform how to engage. Can confirm that's what I did. Thank you very much for the advice, Dina Warabon. And now, I can see how my openness to Columbia Law has culminated in an unforgettable experience. Here's one of the lessons I learned. It's been us, the students, who have created some of the most enriching and beautiful opportunities here by using our own time, attention, and labor, all the while paying tuition. A few examples from this past year. I've proudly witnessed leaders of affinity groups, such as the Black Law Students Association and Empowering Women of Color, provide their membership and the law school community with resources and programming to support living and learning in a world fraught by COVID-19. Professor Alexandra Carter enabled our Advanced Mediation Clinic to create and lead a training on anti-racism and its ethical imperative for the Eastern District of New York, the American Bar Association, and even the United Nations. And while many of us have been away from Morningside Heights, we have worked tirelessly to build community and support local businesses when we can. Black-owned is a vibe. As we continue to recognize and celebrate our collective efforts, let's amplify individuals and organizations by giving them the credit they deserve. If anything, this tells us that institutions follow people. We don't wait for institutions to show us the way. As we celebrate one another and all we have done to move Columbia Law School forward, when we do levy critiques or call out inequities and injustices, we know there are individuals behind the institutions. This academic year has pushed us to think critically about legal education, the infrastructure that is Columbia Law School, and the lawyers these systems produce. I am somewhat comforted by the fact that I am graduating among people who will not only change legal education, but who will also change the world. And as always seems to be the case, this change is urgent. We see this in our own America, especially following last summer's collective awakening, perhaps a reawakening, to the racial and justice issues that plague our country up to this very day. It's so urgent, in fact, that if we hadn't been following the news, which we avoid because of its trauma, we would have inadvertently missed honoring many lives that have since been lost to police brutality and white supremacy. The revolution is not so far away. In fact, many have fought before us, including our beloved Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. The review curated a moving set of tributes to honor her this year, and her teaching that most touched me was this: she was the one who needed to feel most comfortable with her decisions. As we make decisions now and as future lawyers, we must be comfortable that our decisions are resonant with justice. This is a reminder that for some of us, myself included, the revolution is reality. Celebrating ourselves is also a reality. To you, my fellow classmates, know that you did something absolutely marvelous. You completed your legal education during a global pandemic and during a nationwide uprising against racial injustice. Continue to show up for yourselves and those you love, honor your wellness and well-being, and celebrate today and always. I leave you with the words that the 2020 to 2021 Administrative Board of the Columbia Law Review left with me in celebrating our triumphs in the face of adversity. Forsan et haec olim meminisse juvabit. A joy it will be one day, perhaps, to remember even this. Congratulations, Columbia Law School class of 2021.
Thank you for your inspiring words, Tumishe. It is my pleasure to introduce to you our LL.M. speaker, Major David Taylor Dayton, Jr. David is originally from a town of less than 500 people in southwest Wyoming. Following receipt of his Juris Doctor in 2011, he joined the United States Air Force, where he serves as a JAG officer. After graduation, David will be assigned to an important military post in Canberra, Australia, where he will serve as an exchange officer with the Australian Judge Advocate General Court. Despite his impressive many professional accomplishments so far, David emphasizes his greatest achievement is being a father to 5 amazing children. I am delighted to introduce David to you.
Thank you, Loon, for that kind introduction. I am truly honored to stand here today representing the nearly 200 LLM graduates from 47 countries who have faced and successfully overcome the challenges of this unusual year. It is thrilling to finally reach this momentous day and receive a law degree from this hallowed university. Whether due to personal circumstances, government policies, or the pandemic, which has become so inseparably intertwined with our law school experience, I imagine all of us have experienced moments during the year where we could not fathom getting to this point. But for most of us, if we look back even further, you can probably remember moments where your younger selves could never have guessed that you'd be blessed with an opportunity to study and earn a degree from this prestigious institution. Perhaps you faced discrimination, an educational deficit, economic, political, or familial limitations. And if those obstacles were not enough, you may have doubted your true potential. It is likely that we all would not be here today if not for someone who pushed us past those struggles and saw in us something more than we saw in ourselves. Shortly after graduating with my Juris Doctor without a job and facing an exceptional economic downturn, I took my young family to another state so that I could pursue an unpaid internship with the hopes that it might lead to a job. I worked nights stocking shelves at Walmart, interning during the day. It was one of the most stressful periods in my life. There were many nights as I worked in the freezer section that I struggled to imagine having enough money to take care of my family. In those moments, if you would have told me I would someday be able to attend Columbia Law School and earn my LLM degree, I would have laughed in your face. But during that time, and many times since, someone did believe in me. Despite the pressures of being a mother of 2 little ones and facing uncomfortable deprivation, my wife Heather saw in me a potential that I did not see in myself. She encouraged me daily to keep pressing on and believed that if I did, I would someday succeed. Without her, I would not be here today. My message today is one of gratitude. Yes, we faced a number of struggles this year, as we have throughout our lives. But there are people who have stood behind us and pushed us to succeed, both before and during this year. For me, it was my sweet Heather. For others, it may have been a teacher or a friend. As we take the next step forward in our careers and our lives, may we always remember the parent who went without sleep, the teachers who encouraged us, and the love that pushed a young wife to help a young husband believe in himself. In this year, I've seen our class connect and support each other in New York City and around the world. My first introduction to my LLM classmates was through a Facebook group and WhatsApp chat months before school started. I felt an instant connection with people I had never met as we discussed the excitement, trepidation, and logistics of potentially going to law school during a worldwide pandemic. Over the coming months, and with the start of school, these acquaintances turned into friends. Those who arrived in New York earlier to study in person were quick to give advice on how to quarantine and to set up social distancing appropriate meetups once the quarantine period ended. The chat became the center for addressing the minutiae of navigating this new world and branched into subchats for sports, food, classes, and the always agreeable domain of politics. That support and guidance came from students who continued to care for each other throughout our year together. By being part of that chat, I learned that not only do we have amazing photographers, musicians, and writers among us, but above all, we have amazing people. In remembering our law school experience, may we not just focus on what we missed out on, but more importantly, focus on what we gained and learned by facing this adversity together. With that gratitude in our hearts, it is now our time to support others as they chase their dreams. It is likely that most of us will have doors open because of our time here and our degree from this university. May we be willing to not rush in, but stand and hold open those doors for others who have not yet been so fortunate. Although our focus now shifts to putting our knowledge and education to use, may we not do so in selfishness, but with a strong desire to help others. It should be easy for us to do this with so many Columbia Law School alumni around the world who stand as stalwart examples of this selfless service. We must understand the importance of our connection to this institution. May we be ethical and trustworthy as we facilitate and take part in the important work that lies ahead. You now have Columbia attached to not just your resume, but indelibly connected to your identity. May you represent the school and yourselves the best that you can. I congratulate you and am so grateful to be a part of such a special class in such a special year. Thank you.
Thank you, David. My name is Austin Collier, and as graduation co-chair, it is now my honor to introduce the winner of the 2021 Willis L.M. Reese Prize for Excellence in Teaching to Professor Maeve Glass. Awarded by a vote from the student body, this prize honors the memory of Professor Willis Reese, whose dedication to his students and teaching is legendary. An alumna of Columbia Law School herself, Professor Glass joined the Columbia Law faculty in 2018. She earned her PhD at Princeton University in 2016 and won the American Society for Legal History's Best Dissertation Prize the following year. That Professor Glass was able to connect with and inspire her students so deeply during and outside of class, even with the challenges presented by the pandemic and distance learning this past year, shows the depth of her dedication to teaching, which is rivaled only by her scholarship. Professor Glass draws on her expertise in legal history, the American slave trade, constitutional law, property law, and social justice to provide students with fresh historical perspectives and innovative teaching methods. Congratulations, Professor Glass.
To the members of the Columbia Law School class of 2021, congratulations. Thank you for the immense honor of being able to be here and speak with you today. Teaching you, learning from you, has been one of the great privileges of my life. To the parents, grandparents, siblings, spouses, children, and all the loved ones who have cheered you on, lifted you up, and brought you back down to earth when you needed it most, congratulations to you as well. This has been a journey through law school unlike any before it. A journey for which none of you signed up, and yet one that you have navigated with strength and determination, leadership, and grace. This then is a moment to celebrate, a moment to pause and reflect, to consider that which has come before us and that which yet lies ahead. It is in that spirit of reflection that I want to begin today with a story. This is a story from a seemingly arcane case that has welcomed and confounded first-year law students for at least a century. It is a case that was there to greet you 3 years ago at the start and is here now at the end to help send you on your way. Family members, you may have heard your graduate reference this case as the one about the fox. If you don't know what I'm talking about, it's okay. All you need to know is that it takes place on a beach not far from here in Long Island when one winter day in 1804, a man set out in pursuit of a fox and watched in dismay as someone else got to it first. Made famous 2 decades later by a law professor here at Columbia, this case lays out the rules of what one has to do to acquire ownership over something. For better or worse, it continues to serve as an entry point into our profession. In its brief few pages, one can tease out some basic lessons in lawyering, how to move between levels of generality, mold rules into standards, and tread in the space between what the law is and what it ought to be. And yet, in the time that I have today, I want to suggest that this old case has one last parting lesson to teach us. And the lesson is simply this: every story we tell, every constellation of facts we assemble has a frame. Change the frame, and you change the story. Change the stories that matter, and you might just change the world. To see how this idea works and why it matters, let's start by returning to that old case and tracing the story it tells and the frame upon which it rests. Published in one of the earliest case reporters in the country, this is a case that offers an inspirational story for the ages, a promise that in that newly created land of these United States, if you worked hard enough to come close enough to signal to the world your claim of what is yours, you too would find recognition in the courts of justice. Now pause and consider the frame upon which the story rests. This is a frame of erasure, a frame that makes it impossible to see, much less to hear, the stories and the struggles of the peoples whose histories swept through and past that unrequited fox hunt by the ocean. This is a frame that took a place defined by thousands of years of possession, of life and beauty and complexity, and silenced it all down to a single unit of space, preserved in the words of the law only for its emptiness. A wild and uninhabited land, an unpossessed wasteland. This is a frame that took a brutal age of conquest and enslavement, rooted in rules of dispossession based on the law's classification of the color of one's flesh and the source of one's blood, and reduced it all down to a single moment of original acquisition, erasing from view the whipping post the hunter's father kept in his kitchen, the names of the people he held in bondage, and the wooden cargo ships he dispatched from the frozen shores of New York to carry the fruit of the plantations to market, a vast web of stolen lands and stolen lives cast to the margins by this founding frame. Hold on to that view for just a moment longer, and we can begin to glimpse how those who were the first to change this frame of erasure, those who were the first to speak with conviction and courage the truths that it silenced, began to change the arc of the world. Here we need to pull back the frame once more to watch as those wooden cargo ships that were once the chosen symbol of the United States Constitution descended along a coast preserved today as a land of fragments, north versus south, nation versus states, but was in fact a land of pathways, ancient waterways of commerce that had connected the towns and ports and plantations together for centuries. Here, we need to listen not to the Supreme Court justice whose words etched in stone kept the cargo ships in motion, a man who once shocked his architect with a request to keep those whom he enslaved in a cellar, a man who still sits encased in bronze in the entry to the Supreme Court. No. Here we need to listen to the words of the abolitionists, the refugees, the removed, the theorists, the lawyers, the poets, the artists who rose up and refused to sit down, who at the risk of their own lives kept a record of wrongs that could not be heard in the courts of law. Those who shifted our gaze from the hounds preserved in pursuit of a fox to the hounds trained to hunt and terrorize those sitting out on the back roads of America in pursuit of the promise of freedom and peace. Those whose words and thoughts and struggles laid the foundations upon which we now stand today. We are the beneficiaries of those who dared to question that opening frame, those who lifted up and made audible the truths that it would not hold. As lawyers, leaders, teachers, we are duty-bound to continue the tradition they began. So today, as we send you on your way, I leave you with these parting words of advice. For those graced with the confidence in your thoughts and the command of your voice, cultivate the awesome power of listening. Speak less than you think you need to, echo those who have spoken before you, give credit where credit is due, and recognize that that which you have assumed to be the final truth may be the beginning paragraph of a story that will take you to places that you cannot yet see and where you have not yet been. For those graced with pangs of self-doubt and sense of unbelonging, allow yourself to hear your words and watch where they soar and what heights they will reach. For all of us, question that which you assume to be settled. Bring your whole self to bear and do it with love and humility. There's work to be done, and no one else better to do it. Class of 2021, keep changing the frame, and that long line of fixed yesterdays will give way to the as yet undetermined pathways of tomorrow. Keep changing the frame, and you will make this world a little more empathetic, a little more compassionate, a little more just. Class of 21, congratulations, and go get 'em.
Thank you, Professor Glass. Our distinguished graduation speaker, Secretary Antony Blinken, is a dedicated public servant who, as a top diplomat in multiple presidential administrations, has championed U.S. interests and shaped foreign policy for decades. Upon being confirmed by the Senate, President Biden said that Tony Blinken has displayed extraordinary integrity, judgment, and inclusiveness as he has implemented America's foreign policy priorities. After graduating from Columbia Law School in 1988, Secretary Blinken quickly distinguished himself as an indispensable asset to the U.S. foreign policy community, holding senior positions in the National Security Council and State Department during the Clinton administration, followed by 6 years as a Democratic staff director of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. During his time as Deputy National Security Advisor and then as Deputy Secretary of State under President Obama, Secretary Blinken strengthened connections across the interagency community to foster cooperation on a broad range of challenging policy issues. Secretary Blinken again answered the call to public service when he joined President Biden's campaign as a foreign policy advisor in 2020 and was sworn in as a Secretary of State in January of this year with strong bipartisan support. While his foreign policy achievements are well known, his personal passions extend beyond the world of diplomacy. He is a dedicated Columbia alumnus, an author, and a musician who you can listen to on Spotify under the name A. Blinken. And of course, you will be able to hear Secretary Blinken on the news on a daily basis as he forges U.S. foreign policy for years to come. On behalf of the Columbia Law School class of 2021, it is my great honor to introduce the 71st U.S. Secretary of State, Tony Blinken.
Hello, Columbia Law Class of 2021. I am honored and delighted to be part of your commencement. This is a big day. It's a big day for the parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles, siblings, and other loved ones who've supported you and take so much pride in seeing you graduate, even if we can't cheer together in person. It's a big day for the professors, teaching assistants, and staff who challenged and guided you live and on Zoom. For the friends who kept you company on your journey and made hard days a little easier and good days even brighter. Most of all, it's a big day for you, class of 2021. You've achieved something remarkable. And you've done it during an incredibly difficult time. Earning a law degree from Columbia isn't easy under the best of circumstances. You've done it through lockdowns, through isolation, in a city that was loud with ambulances, then eerily quiet. You've had to forego opportunities. You haven't been able to meet new people or visit family or friends. Some of you have gotten sick or lost someone you love. Getting through these semesters has taken a lot of fortitude. It also may have taken a lot out of you. So I really hope you're able to savor, at least for a moment, what you've accomplished and replenish before moving on to what's next. Today, you all join esteemed ranks of Columbia law grads, including legendary justices Benjamin Cardozo and Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and civil rights activists like Bella Abzug, Paul Robeson, James Meredith. There were also two presidents. Teddy Roosevelt was class of 1882, but he never graduated. Franklin Roosevelt was class of 1907. He didn't graduate either. Yet they went on to become transformative presidents, one turning America into a global power and earning a Nobel Peace Prize, the other leading us through the Great Depression and World War II and serving a record 4 terms. Today, you've done something they didn't. You've earned a diploma from Columbia Law School. I'm also aware of who came before me. Last year's commencement speaker was a then unemployed lawyer who hadn't practiced in decades. Now, he's leader of the free world. I'll do my best to live up to his standard. When Dean Lester invited me to speak today, I quickly said yes, for 2 reasons. The first is that not too long ago, or at least that's how it feels, I was exactly where you are, wrapping up 3 years at Columbia Law and wondering what in the world would come next. For me, law school was captured pretty well by my first class on my first day, Civil Procedure with Professor Hans Smit. Hans Smit was 6'4", bald, and once nearly qualified for the Dutch Olympic water polo team. He was an intimidating presence. We felt like small children in front of him. The very first class, on the very first day of my law school career, Professor Smit pointed at one of my classmates, asked her to stand, and fired a question at her, Socratic style. As she was mustering up the courage to respond, he put up his hand and said, "Stop. Wait. Before you answer, there's one thing you must know. No matter what you say, you'll be wrong." That was law school for me in a nutshell. Lots of questions, not always a lot of cut and dried answers. Some days I really liked it. It was like learning a new language. I studied with remarkable professors, including the legendary Ambassador Richard Gardner, an international trade and nuclear arms expert, Harvey Goldschmidt, who was such a captivating teacher that he made a subject I never thought I'd be interested in, corporations, come alive. And I made great friends and bought my share of rounds at the late lamented West End bar. Here's what law school didn't lead me to: a career in the law. I gave it a try. I joined a big firm, like I suspect many of you will. There were brilliant people working there, challenging cases, and of course the salary wasn't bad either. Some of you may find that you love those jobs, as many of my friends did and still do. I hope you do. In my case, I lasted 1 year, 10 months, 3 days, and 5 hours. It just wasn't for me. We spend a huge portion of our lives at work. And if at all possible, you need to love what you do. Not all the time. Even the best jobs have bad days. But if there are too many days in a row where you're feeling lost or disengaged or depleted, maybe it's time to find a new path. So I said goodbye to big law, and eventually I made my way to Washington, D.C., and wound up as a special assistant in the Bureau of European and Eurasian Affairs at the State Department. As you can probably tell from the title, it was a pretty junior role. Certainly didn't pay much. It wasn't glamorous. My office was a room that, before I inhabited it, held a giant safe with space for pretty much nothing else. Basically a windowless closet. But I was hooked. Diplomacy felt urgent, challenging, and directly connected to improving people's lives. It was a way to serve my country, which I badly wanted to do. And I felt so lucky to be able to do it, because I had friends from law school who couldn't afford to take a job like mine because of student debt. I felt grateful every morning walking into work. Today, my office as Secretary of State is just one flight up from that airless closet where my life as a diplomat began. I even have a window now, and my law degree helped me get here. Columbia taught me how to argue persuasively, to see the other side's case, to focus on problem solving. It taught me how laws and institutions, at their best, build trust and make it possible for people or countries to come together, even as adversaries, to hammer out agreements and make progress. I use my law school training virtually every day in this job, even if I couldn't have planned exactly how it would help me get here. I tell you this in case you also wonder what will come next for you. Maybe you've got a job waiting. Maybe it's something you're really excited to do. It might not turn out to be what you hoped. You might find yourself starting over, maybe even a few times. I did, and it turned out to be okay. Columbia Law grads are hyper-accomplished and driven. You're great planners, but even you can't plan your lives to the nanosecond. And even you can't lay out a perfect, linear path for your futures. Though it can be scary, listen to that voice inside you that says when something isn't right and needs to change. And stay open to fate, to chance, to luck, to love. They lead you where your heart wants to go. That's how you end up leading a life that's right for you. Not another Columbia Law School graduate, not your parents, not your friends, you. There's a second reason I wanted this opportunity to speak with you today, and it has to do with the degree that you've earned, the education you've received, the work I believe you are called to do with it. There's a strong connection between what we do at the State Department and the mission of Columbia Law School, and it's more important than ever. There's a portrait hanging outside my office of the great John Jay, King's College class of 1764, co-author of the Federalist Papers, first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and first Secretary of State, on an interim basis while everyone waited for Thomas Jefferson to make his way home from France. As a founder of our fledgling democracy, John Jay understood that our country's greatest source of strength would be our commitment to the rule of law. Not the size of our economy, not the strength of our military, our fidelity to the principle of equal justice for all. That principle is enshrined throughout the Constitution, amended over time as we recognized ways in which we fall short and had to do better. Everyone is entitled to due process. Everyone is entitled to equal protection. And the most powerful people in the land, judges, legislators, executive officers, including the President of the United States, are bound by the law just like everyone else. More than anything else, that's the unique genius of the United States. Our system of laws, our capacity to adapt and improve, to recognize and correct injustices that it once ignored or even perpetuated. Leaders around the world have studied our system from the start. It's as vital to our national strength now as it was in John Jay's day. It's been tested throughout our history, and it's been tested again in recent years. We've seen how justice can be deeply unequal for people of color, women, immigrants, LGBTQ people, and other marginalized populations. We've seen rights that should be sacred, like the right to vote, under threat. We've seen trust shaken in the public offices and institutions that exist to protect everyone. And take it from me, this is a foreign policy priority as well as a national one. Because democracy, human rights, and the rule of law are under challenge, even under siege, in virtually every region of the world. And authoritarianism is on the rise. We want the rule of law to triumph. We need the rule of law to triumph because it's the foundation of stability and ultimately progress. It's how conflicts are mediated peacefully, how people can trust that those outcomes are fair, and how we can best push back against the brutal notion that might makes right. In the growing competition between autocracy and democracy, the autocrats are making the argument that they can deliver for their people in a way that democracy can't. So the challenge we face today is to prove not only that democracy can deliver results for people, but that it can do it in a way that's fair, equitable, transparent, humane. Our ability to stand up for these values depends on whether we're living up to them at home. When we fall short, the world takes note. Not only our adversaries, but also countries that share our values and want to work with us. And when we live up to our ideals, when our elections are fair, our courts deliver justice, our press is vigorous and independent, the world sees that too. At our best, we are a country driven by that first sentence in our Constitution. We want to form a more perfect union. That means, by definition, we acknowledge from the start our imperfections. We don't sweep them under the rug, ignore them, pretend they don't exist. We confront them openly and transparently. That can be painful, even ugly, but it makes us who we are. And I believe it sets us apart from other countries. That's the spirit that we've got to bring to the urgent work of strengthening our justice system, to make sure it honors the principle that all people are truly equal in rights and in dignity. And as the most recent graduates of one of the most distinguished law schools on earth, no one is better positioned to do this work than you. That's true no matter what's next for you. Whether you become a corporate lawyer, a constitutional scholar, a public defender, a candidate for office, or something else entirely. Might I suggest serving in government? There's no better time. Maybe even consider the State Department. We'd love to have you. And let me give a special shout out to all the international students graduating today. Columbia has an outstanding tradition of educating women and men from abroad, who then become legal scholars, advocates, diplomats, and judges around the world. You in particular have a powerful opportunity to stand up for democracy and the rule of law around the world. Whatever your path, you can protect equal justice through the work you do, including the pro bono projects you take on, through the professionalism you exhibit and your commitment to ethical behavior at every moment, especially when no one's watching. You can do it by speaking up for people whose voices are silenced and challenging your colleagues and peers to do better for the planet and the less powerful. You can do it by bringing others along with you. You know this. The law can be inaccessible, confounding, intimidating, especially for those people whose lives are most affected by it. You have the knowledge to navigate it. You can make it legible to others. And in this way, you can empower them to fight for justice too. As the great Ruth Bader Ginsburg put it, fight for the things that you care about, but do it in a way that will lead others to join you. That's what you're called on to do now. So graduates, it may feel like you're graduating into a time of great uncertainty. Take heart. Many people are hard at work ending the pandemic, rebuilding the economy, protecting the planet, restoring justice. Soon, you'll be among them, and that gives me a great deal of hope. So, take a breath. Take a breath. Celebrate this achievement. Catch up on your sleep, and then get to work, because we need you. I know you will make us proud. Congratulations, class of 2021, and good luck.
Thank you for your words of wisdom, Secretary Blinken, and for your well wishes to our graduating class. At this time, my fellow graduates, I propose we take a moment to reflect on all that we have accomplished to make it to this point. The things we have done, the places we have been, the people we have met. No matter the circumstances, we all leave Columbia Law School today as better versions of ourselves. We are more prepared to face the challenges of a society and respond as skillful attorneys and advocates with the depth and thoughtfulness Columbia has imparted on us. Class of 2021, thanks for standing strong. We have graduated in the midst of unprecedented times, a global pandemic leading to unimaginable pain and loss, racial reckoning that has shown us core problems in our country, and political polarization and tension of new degrees. And yet, here we are, arising from the challenges as Columbia Law School graduates. We have responded to and conquered many obstacles thus far, and I am certain we will continue to do great things in our bright futures. We are unique to the history of this university, and I am glad that our paths crossed here. Onwards. Congratulations to the Columbia Law School class of 2021.
You did it! You did it, and you did it in one of the most challenging years anyone could ever imagine.
I want to send my warmest congratulations for the class of 2021.
Congratulations to the 2021 graduates. You should be excited and proud, and you should also feel like you can take some chances.
What it means in this moment to be a Columbia Law School graduate is nothing short of an incredible opportunity and responsibility.
The world is in desperate need of leaders. I trust and I know you will fulfill your potential to lead the world into a better place.
I took some chances upon graduation that I couldn't have taken if I didn't have my Columbia Law degree. And I'm really glad I did.
Our job as lawyers, and one of the greatest gifts of being a Columbia Law School graduate, is joining not just a profession, but a people, a community committed to a society that works for all of us.
So just remember that you've really earned something special. Good luck to all of you, and I wish you nothing but the best.
Go forward and get it done.